Hello, good evening.
Hi, good
Welcome to
evening.
another program of Intentional Loving. We do apologize for our late start. We are experiencing some technical difficulties. We did send out a notice that we will not be streaming on Facebook, but we will be on YouTube instead. So, for those of you who got the message and you're on, welcome, welcome to Intentional Loving. Uh, Please, dear, tell
Yeah.
us what's going to be happening this
All right.
evening.
Well, come on in, everybody. When you really want technology to work for you, it just has a way of doing its own thing. But tonight, we are excited to share with you a young couple. Um, they have been a part of our lives here at KCI for a little bit now. Craig and Cheyenne, they are young parents. But with everything that's been happening today, even as we look at the news, um, over the past few days, I know a lot of you have been watching at what's been happening in the United States with a lot of the protests and what's been happening with respect to the violence and the call for justice. And so, even today, our own Prime Minister here in Canada talked about the fact that even in Canada, there is an issue of, and he talked about systemic uh, racism or discrimination. And so it has become a very focal point for conversation and discussion, even as we begin to consider what is happening globally. So I thought we'll have a conversation about the whole issue of race and relationships. And so we invited a young couple. They are a biracial couple. It's Craig and Cheyenne. Um, so we're going to invite them to come on in. Craig and Cheyenne. Us in this conversation. So tell us a little. Um, how long have you guys been together? And was it love at first sight? So you guys are from two different cultural backgrounds, all right? I think Craig, you are originally from Jamaica,
Yes, sir.
right? And Cheyenne, you are from Newfoundland.
Yeah.
All right. So those are two diverse cultures, diverse cultures, and I am sure that you have had your own adjustments to make with respect to the cultural differences in your relationship, the cultural diversity, and so on. Let us talk a little about some of those cultural differences and how you manage them, how you dealt with those cultural differences. So I'm glad that you mentioned that from the beginning that you're in love with this girl. And so love made it a lot easier to communicate.
Yes, sir.
So how about you, Cheyenne? What were some of the challenges? It's quite interesting. I did not realize that. So there's some similarities with respect to the culture.
Tell us a little bit about some of those similarities.
And
Sounds
like
good.
for your
Okay. All right.
And what about you, Craig? Do you like the food from Newfoundland? So have
Okay.
you had to adjust your taste buds to less spicy food, Craig? Awesome, that's beautiful. So I want to ask you tonight, do you think that racial discrimination exists here in Canada?
Yeah. So
And
you
actually, louder than words.
yeah, so you've seen people act in a way that would suggest that there is some element of discrimination existing in the Canadian society.
Yeah.
All right. And how how have you responded to those, the ones that you have experienced? I think one of the things that we have come to realize is that there is a difference between the whole issue of racial preference and racial discrimination, in the sense that it is natural for people to feel a bit more comfortable with people who look like them, people who there are certain uh, social similarities, and that's fine. That's fine. Usually, people have to find a space where they're able to function in an environment where they are comfortable. The discrimination, however, I think can be very subtle, and in some cases not very subtle, more open and glaring. But a lot of people don't realize they are discriminating because there are certain preconceptions that they have about people. And you have just pointed out that one, Cheyenne, where there is the perception that, oh, she must be the one that is doing this, because there is a view that maybe the dominant person in this relationship has to be you by virtue of the fact that you're white. And so there are those, I recall my friend, it exists in strange places. A friend of mine was sharing with me an experience he had, and he lives in a Caribbean country. That's his home country. His wife, who happens to be Canadian, but she's a white Canadian. Um, they live in the Caribbean. His sister-in-law, who lives in Canada, visited with them, and so they had gone to the supermarket to get some business done. And the security guard um, approached his sister-in-law, who was the visitor in the country, and treated her with a certain kind of deference and respect, and turned to him because she perceived that he was the driver, and demanded of him that he lodged his bag in the bag bay because he was not allowed to take his bag into the supermarket. But his sister-in-law was allowed to take her bag into the supermarket. And he shared with me that experience just to indicate how even in our own community, our own people sometimes can have these biases and differences in how they treat us. And I think in those things can be taught. Racism can be taught. It is passed on to our children in very subtle ways. When we make statements about another race, sometimes that's not informed. So I think you kind of answered the next question that I was going to come to, which has to do with the fact that do you think, because you're an interracial couple, do you think that interracial marriages are celebrated here in Canada, or they're frowned upon or looked upon in a negative light? Right. So what are some of the things though you have learned even in this process, because your children will be growing up in an environment where they have to make a decision with respect to where they fit. Are we black or are we white? Is that a conversation you have had with your children? And those are real concerns. I can and as parents, I'm sure that you're always concerned about how your children survive in this real world. Looking at what happened in the United States of America, and it's happening around the world in different places and maybe in different magnitudes as well. Um, each of us as parents, we have to have this conversation with our children about their values and how they see another human being and how they view another human being, regardless of their skin color, regardless of their background, their social, political, ethnic, religious background. And I think it's a conversation that really needs to happen with our children, but also in the wider community as well. And so I don't know if there's a specific question that my wife would want to ask you guys before we wrap this up. I have a question, though, that I'm going to save for the last, but is there anything that you would like to maybe jump in and ask or make an observation on?
Yeah, well, the thing that I'm thinking about is how do you teach your children to love everyone when you may be picked upon because of your color or your race?
Mhm.
How do you have that conversation with your kids and, encourage them to, no matter what people say to you or say about you, intentionally, to hurt or to offend, how do you still love them? I mean, as believers, we know Cheyenne and Craig are believers and they will be raising their kids with those values, but they're young and will not necessarily be able to, understand and embrace all. But how do you teach them that? How do you help them as parents to be able to have a mindset to love everyone in spite of what they may say to you or do to you? commendable for
Indeed.
you both because for me, marriage, while a beautiful thing that the Lord has created, or a beautiful union, I should say, that the Lord has created, and partnership, uh, you can be of the same race, of the same culture, and still it's difficult. So I can just imagine, you know, being a biracial couple, the other scenarios that exist with, being a couple. So you definitely have to have something outside of yourself that you depend on to get you through the, you know, the testings that will come because you will be tried, you will be tested.
Hmm.
But you have to have
We're
something outside of
fortunate.
yourself indeed to keep you. And maybe you guys can share a little bit about that.
Nice.
Well, that's good. That's about the parents and the relatives. Well, what about the two of you? How do
Was it
you get along?
it comes
Similarities and, with the food and some of the cultures as well. But how do you get along, as an interracial couple?
So from your perspective, the interracial does not exist.
no because it's
Well, I like to be real, and I believe you, Craig, that love conquers all, and I believe you, but I like to be real. So, are you saying that Cheyenne has never gotten you on the other side?
Yes.
Okay,
All
so
right.
you haven't had arguments over maybe the way we do things, let's say a particular scenario, the way you might view it and the way that Cheyenne might view it, that there's a difference in the way you view it because of your background? You haven't found that.
We grew up.
Okay.
Come to an agreement on the birthdays? Are you going to do it every year or
No,
every other
we,
year?
we do have a party every year, but
yes.
it's probably just not what I would normally make it.
Okay,
So,
okay.
It's kind of watered down
yeah.
because I sit in
Okay.
Okay, well, at
That.
least I just wanted to know because for me, I like to be real.
Yeah.
In as
Yeah.
much as we sit here and we recently celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, we sit here and for a lot of people looking in, it looks as though, oh, we're the perfect couple. But,
Right.
we do have our disagreements, our misunderstandings, but what we do have in common is that we know that we are friends and whatever it is that we come up against, we're willing to work it through and listen to each other. So for me, I always like to bring out the realness of,
Yes.
the relationship, not just the plastic,
Right.
romantic appearance of, always being perfect and everything seemingly to be, seamless, that there's no current underneath, nothing
Mm.
brewing. No. I like
Right.
to be real. I like people to know that,
Yeah.
we're not perfect. We do have our disagreements, but this is how we get through it. These are some of the things we do to overcome it. So
Right.
thank you for sharing that. I know I was prying a little bit, but
No, it's
I,
okay.
I think that it's good for our viewers to be able to hear that as well. Not just
Sure.
that everything is all good and well, but
Mm.
you do have struggles. But how do you deal with it? This is how we approach it. This is how I take. We come to an agreement 50-50. Well, okay, this is how we'll do it. We won't do it for in your case. We wouldn't do it as large. We'll do it a little smaller. Cut back a little bit, but we still achieve what we want to achieve as a couple.
Right.
So that's beautiful, and thank you so much again for sharing.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, that's all the time we have tonight, and thank you so much for staying tuned with us. We want to say thanks again to Craig and to Cheyenne for sharing their experience. I hope that this is not going to be your last time with us on this program. Looking forward to having you again.
And hopefully, we didn't rob them of you tonight.
No, it's okay.
All right.
God bless.
God bless. Once again, good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for staying with us on another episode of Intentional Loving. May God bless you and strengthen and keep you. Even in this time, as we go through everything that's happening around the world, we pray that God's hand of mercy and compassion will be extended in the United States of America, that healing will come to the nation, that healing would come to the community that has lost so much. A life has been lost, lives are being lost every day, businesses are being disrupted. So much is happening, and we pray for God's hand of comfort. We pray for God's hand of divine intervention as well, and that His peace would prevail. God bless you. Do stay safe in this time of COVID-19, and may God's hand remain upon your family. God bless you.
God bless you. Remember to continue to be intentional.
Yes.
See you next week.